and welcome to Adventures in Local Marketing from BrightLocal, the marketing podcast for marketers who want to do good local SEO. In the upcoming episodes, I'm going to chat to a smorgasbord of marketers who each bring their unique insight into the local marketing landscape. Each episode is going to serve up a one-stop overview of our guest's chosen topic area. It will offer tips and tactics that you'll be able to dash off and implement right away, as well as offer insight that will get your brain cogs whirring. I'm your host, Claire Carlisle, and I'm BrightLocal's local search expert, as well as a chartered marketer with 20 years of experience working with local businesses of all shapes and sizes. Today, we'll be chatting with my very good friend and queen of Enterprise Local SEO, Krystal Taing. Krystal is a very experienced local search marketer, and she started her career working in e-commerce in 2014, and she quickly took an interest in local SEO and her passion grew from there. Krystal's a big fan of working on local marketing strategy for multi-location brands, and she works with them to solve persistent marketing challenges around visibility, conversions, and measurement. She's also a Google Business Profile Platinum product expert, which means that she has the sometimes unenviable task of providing support to businesses on the Google Business Profile help community. And she gives her time freely to help businesses solve their Google Business Profile challenges. Welcome to the show, Krystal.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I am very lucky I get to speak to you and mine your brain for lots of exciting information and insight into enterprise local SEO. So we're just going to crack on and we will start the show like we do with the concept of define and elevate. So as marketers, we've got a lot of stuff going on, lots of new ideas. And what we want from you is a really succinct, accessible description of what enterprise multi-location local SEO is. And then you're going to tell us why we need to keep it in our toolbox as local marketers.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about this topic. I'm oddly passionate about it. So when we think about enterprise local SEO, this is really about building and promoting visibility of your locations when you are a multi-location brand. So some of the things that I think enterprise businesses struggle with is the challenge between what stays at corporate, what stays central, and then how do you really operate at a local level and compete locally and build a local voice and convert a local community. So I think as a marketer, it's really critical because you have an opportunity to connect with the local community, but you also have a challenge because you need to think about ownership and management and really keeping things central. So I think from a marketer's perspective, it's an exciting but also challenging space to be.
So who needs to think about enterprise local SEO? What type of businesses is it for?
It really is for almost every business. This can be businesses today that already have multiple locations, and multiple locations can be 1, 2, 3, a couple. It could be hundreds, it can be thousands. But one of the things to also consider is it could be a single business that is looking to grow sometime in the near future. Because there's different types of challenges that when you are smaller, it's easier to tackle and strategies to consider before you start expanding. So that's really the prime opportunity. So whether you're a single location looking to grow to a couple, or you already have a number of locations, enterprise local SEO is for you.
Brilliant. I love that because whenever I've thought about enterprise local SEO at scale in the past, I've very much thought, well, this isn't for me because we don't have hundreds of locations. We're not, managing a massive franchise or something. So the sort of idea that oh, even if you're single location or if you're working with businesses to scale in general of their offerings, you need to sort of think about these systems and processes before you get into a pickle,
Yes.
before
Yes.
things go wrong. So
Yeah.
let's think about some of those pickles and some of those things that go wrong. So if we were talking about the advantages and the disadvantages of enterprise local SEO, what are those? What are those opportunities and what are those very common stumbling blocks that you see?
So I think opportunities is definitely the ability to leverage branding in a different way that a single location business doesn't have the opportunity. So, if we're thinking about building prominence with Google, you want to have your name mentioned more frequently across the web and in the communities and in public. It's a lot easier to do that when you have a lot more locations. That gives you more opportunity. So that's typically one of the clear advantages of enterprise local SEO is you just have a bigger footprint. You're serving a larger community. So that's something that you do kind of have a leg up on single location businesses. And it's something that you can take to your advantage. Um, but I would say, from a disadvantage perspective, or maybe not a disadvantage, but a challenge that needs to be considered is people, consumers, still like to interact with local businesses. And you don't want to put on this really corporate and buttoned up profile in front of the community. You still want to try to have a connection to your local consumers. And that's oftentimes a challenge if you are just purely looking at operational efficiencies and kind of putting out blanket SEO strategies across the board that doesn't really achieve or allow you to have a localized voice. So that's definitely a challenge if you're an enterprise business.
So when we talk about managing local businesses at scale, we hear a lot of talk and chatter about bulk upload, and then we start thinking about the Google Business Profile API. What do we need to know about both of those things? Where would we use them, and how do we use them?
So for any local business, enterprise business, honestly, I think if you're managing more than a single location, I would definitely recommend looking into, at the bare minimum, bulk uploading to the Google Business Profile account. What this does is it allows you to make changes across multiple locations at once. In my opinion, the new changes to the Google Business Profile interface do not lend well to anyone that wants to manage more than a single location. It's very much tailored towards SMB. I find it hard to find almost anything in there. So I am a really, really big fan of the bulk upload. But I will say there's things that you typically want to leverage in terms of a bulk upload, and then there's probably things that you still want to do manually. So if you have just a couple of locations, things like attributes, especially if you're a restaurant or a hotel or things like that, you could have dozens of attributes you want to set for your locations. It's probably not the best use of time to click through every single one of your profiles and toggle on and off all of these attributes. So that's a great feature to leverage via bulk upload. It's an Excel spreadsheet. You download your locations that are inside of Google, and then you upload it to make the changes. There's a nice summary that tells you how many locations you're changing, and you can choose to move forward or discard any of those changes. But it really is helpful from an efficiency perspective. I will say anything kind of related to the API, most enterprise local businesses are usually going to leverage maybe like a partner, like a tool like BrightLocal or Uberall that has the API. And what that really does is it allows you to leverage a platform that does lend itself to managing multi-location businesses, that maybe has an interface that allows you to bulk edit changes within their dashboard and see some of that. So I think Google creates the API so that other partners can create, systems and tools that lend themselves to enterprise businesses, where Google Business Profiles interface is really, really focused on serving the SMB.
Okay, I've got a question for you now about
Nice.
bulk.
Yes.
So if anyone is like they've got what's the minimum for bulk?
So to do a bulk upload, you just need 1 or 2 locations. Now,
Oh,
if you
okay.
want bulk verification, that is 10 locations or
Ah.
more for a brand. So there are differences. So bulk upload is just getting access to the ability to upload a spreadsheet. As long as you have more than 1 location in your account, you'll get that view. But if you want bulk verification, which means not having to request a postcard when you first create a location, and then also not having to go through verification every time you make a change, you would qualify once your brand has 10 or more locations, all under the same name or owned kind of by the same company. That's definitely, I recommend it. It takes a lot longer than 1 location verification to set up, but after that, it makes your life so much easier. So definitely a fan of bulk verification as well.
Cool. Is there, so you can go ahead, you can verify in any way, even if you haven't done your bulk verification. But if you're using bulk to update, say you've got like 6, 7, 8, and you're not ready to go over to some sort of enterprise solution, or you just don't need to or don't want to. Is there anything that you can't do in bulk? Is there anything that's missing?
There's a lot of things that are missing. So there's not a lot of bulk functionality for things like Google Posts. You cannot load those. You cannot bulk review or see any of your review content, Q&A. There's some features within the Google Business Profile that just cannot be edited in bulk. So I think things like activating food order. There's just like random features that Google's determined not to make available in bulk. So you can't do everything, but most of the things that you want to do are available in bulk, like hours, special hours, those super tedious things to set are available. And then there's also just things I wouldn't recommend changing in bulk. Things like names, probably not. That's a risky one, even if you have bulk verification. So I usually just delete the name column from any bulk uploads. And I think just being really cautious of the data that you're loading and pushing to Google as well.
Fabulous. Can you do services via bulk? Just because there's a lot of chatter about services and ranking at the moment.
There are some that you can do, but they're also fully available via API. And then there's
Okay.
some categories that work, and then predefined services are different than freeform. So for
Okay.
the most part, if services are really important for you, I think it probably makes sense to leverage a partner if you're an enterprise SEO. Um, but yeah,
Okay.
those are very unique because they're so rare by category. And typically when there's a feature that's specific to a category, that's usually an indicator that there's going to be less bulk functionality. But Google is great in that they do make it all available via API.
Okay. Fabulous. Now, just thinking about what other things that businesses, typically overlook when they start to scale that they could think about before they scale to stop things breaking or going wrong or to save them time. What would be your little list of things that they definitely need to consider?
Well, one, I think first is just like the processes you need to have in place to gather information. So this is information as simple as like store details, location details, hours, special hours, promotions, all of the things that you want to put and publish on Google. How are you going to get that? Who are you going to get it from? And how are you going to keep it updated? When you have a single location, I think typically there's 1 or 2 people that you might be working with that are really easy to gather that information. But as soon as that doubles or triples to more locations, then you really have to understand what that process is and typically setting some type of structure. And if it's not as fancy or as detailed as like a CRM system, even like an Excel sheet with like a process, like, hey, we're going to check these features and functions once a week, once a month. We're going to keep it updated, and just setting some kind of rules in place. I think that's one of the things. And then also understanding who you're going to be working with. What areas of local SEO are you going to keep structured and organized from like a single point of contact? But what things do you want to pull in from that location, whether it's, a manager at that location, or if it's a larger business and you have a regional manager that oversees multiple locations, you want to find out who those people are, because like we talked about earlier, you do want to keep a local feel. So can you get images from them? Can you get details about the community if you want to write a description, a unique description, or ask some Q&A? If you want to understand details that are really important to that store or location that customers need to know. Those are the things that should not be blanket across all of your locations. Those are the things that you want to have someone close to in a local community. So setting those before you start scaling will help the scale a lot more.
All right. I love that. The idea that the systems and processes approach, where look at how you're managing your single location. Because if that's going swimmingly, then you'll need to start transferring and thinking, well, who's going to do this bit? And it will be iterative. And as you scale, things are going to change. But knowing in advance who's responsible for what, yeah, super. We need to see that all written down somewhere. We are going to move on to a segment of the podcast called Room 404. So I love this bit where you get to basically pop a sort of concept or a phrase that you want to pop in an oubliette where it will never be able to escape. What is your big bugbear in enterprise local SEO?
So I don't know that I've ever heard the term bugbear, but I love it. And I assume it means what I know as a pet peeve. But I think I'm going to start using that. I would have to say, because I am in a community of amazing practitioners, there are also, I think, people around the local SEO industry that may have, an influential voice that will put out things that are like, this is the number one strategy to rank in first position on Google. And they're like, get 13 reviews, 5-star reviews, and that's going to put you at position 1, no matter your location or all of this. And what I think is really important to understand is there is no strategy that fits all type of businesses, all industries, or all regions. No matter what it is. And I think that's very true in enterprise, because there's a lot of different complications. I think the way to think about it is, as an enterprise, there's some things that work for even some of your locations that don't work for others. You have a lot of different competition in different areas. You sometimes have national competition and then also local competition. So what might work from like a national perspective when you're thinking about enterprise SEO doesn't always work as a local one. And so I think also layering on industry and then region. I just like when someone's like, this is the one thing you need to do, it's one size fits all and you can apply it to all your businesses. I just think you need to test what works for you. You need to take these things into consideration, but also realize that it is not the same across the board. And I think in enterprise, it's very clear, and you're able to see and test across your locations. I've seen it plenty of times where it's like, we've done all of this for a location and it moved the needle, and you can replicate that exact same strategy on maybe a business in New York City. It's not going to even make any dent in your performance, because there's just such a different environment. So I think anyone that's putting out like, this is the strategy to do, this is going to improve your rankings overnight. I always read that with a grain of salt.
Okay, that's perfect. I think we put that in the room 404, we bang the door and it's forgotten. And but it isn't really, because it's going to be on YouTube every week. Someone will be announcing the new top strategy. But so true. Goodbye, one size fits all.
Yeah.
Krystal,
yes.
What we're going to do now is you are basically going to offload your many, many, many years of insights by giving us your 5-point guide to enterprise local SEO success. How lucky are we? Let's go.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. And as you mentioned, I've been doing this for quite a long time, so I'm happy to kind of share my findings with everyone. Uh, in terms of my 5-point guide to enterprise local SEO success, the very first one I think is important to determine your focus. When you are thinking about multiple locations, uh, you can do so much. You can focus on page, you can focus off page, you can focus on, listings, you can focus on reviews and all of those. I think it can become kind of wild very quickly if going into this you don't determine your focus. Uh, and not everything can or should be done at once. And I think it's really important to understand the environment that you're operating in, whether that is, competition, what compelling event are you up against? Maybe there's some new trends that are impacting your industry, your business for whatever reason, can help you kind of carve out what your focus is. But this is, I think, the very first step is, am I going to focus on my Google profiles and optimizing them? Or is our reputation management just really failing against the competition and that's what we want to focus on? Do we need to build out our social campaigns? Or do we really need to focus on converting more customers on page? Like, you can't do it all at once unless you have unlimited resources, which I don't think any business does. But I definitely would say that's the first part. Once you've determined your focus, I would say the second point is really defining what your KPIs are. What are you measuring and how? How are you going to know once you've deployed these strategies, once you've started testing, what does success look like? Are you doing well? Do you need to do things differently? This is also, I think, one of the things where, you kind of just, I see a lot of businesses just do what they think others are doing, but not really sure how to take this back and say, this is the return we're getting from investing these efforts in these areas of our business. And if you're not, again, thinking about that at the beginning, it's really hard to define that afterwards. So making sure you have your KPIs in place. And then also not just making sure they're in place, but what tools are you going to use to measure those? Are these going to be GBP insights? Are you going to use, some of your GA data? Is this going to be the number of reviews you get or how many conversions you get from your social post, all of those types of things. So define them and then determine how you're going to measure them. Then from there, you want to create your team. What did you decide you're focusing on? How did you define you're measuring it? Then who is going to do that? How are you going to get this content? How are you going to deploy this? Are you going to need things like automation? Are you going to need things like API or photographers, those types of things? Or is it something that you can manage centrally? I think understanding what your focus is, having your KPIs in your team is really going to be core to actually launching it. You'll be able to roll out whatever you've determined makes the most sense. And then the next part is really learning. I think that's one of the most interesting parts of local SEO in general, is that you get results fairly quickly. You're able to see how consumers interact or maybe don't interact with what you launched. And this, I think, us as marketers is the most interesting part of our jobs, are being able to kind of pull the strings and see, what do we want to change here? Maybe what images or content got the best response. If you are measuring this data, are you getting more positive reviews? Are you getting more negative reviews? Are you getting more or less clicks? I think once it's launched, you've set your time to measure. Learning is a really important element to scaling. Because scaling doesn't make sense if you keep doing the same thing over and over and it's actually not working. So making sure that you have a time and place where you're going to say, I want to review what we did, how it performed, and if we're going to make changes before we apply this to our next 10, 20, 100 locations is really, really helpful. I would say that's something that should never stop no matter what you do. Even if you deploy something and it's really successful for, say, like a quarter, one of the things in local SEO that is impactful sometimes is like seasonality. Maybe it worked in the winter, but it didn't work in the summer. Like maybe it worked over these holidays, but the other holidays just didn't really respond well. So making sure that you're continuously learning is helpful. And then the last part to scaling local SEO success is really once you've refined what those processes are, to make sure you continuously repeat this process. Go through, maybe you're going to apply the same things, but now to a different focus. Maybe you focused on page and you're now going to say, we need to apply this to our backlink strategy. Maybe we need to apply something else to our reputation or social strategy. That's the best part of scaling, is once you do have a process in place, you can take that, kind of package and then apply it to another one. You've defined your teams, you've defined your KPIs, you've created this really, really well-oiled machine, and you have the opportunity to say, okay, let's go and apply this to our next goal that we're going to work on next quarter. But yeah, I would say those are my 5-point guide to enterprise local SEO success.
That's brilliant, thank you. So if our listeners and watchers are thinking to themselves, like Krystal, I'm pretty keen on enterprise local SEO now, and they want to find out more, they want to read some stuff, listen to some stuff, and learn from clever people apart from yourself, where would you recommend that they go to consume some really good enterprise content?
I would say if I was going to recommend any other person, would definitely be Andrew Shotlin and the team at Local SEO Guide. They definitely work a lot with enterprise companies with a focus on local SEO. I learn a lot from there. But I will say, learning from how practitioners operate on smaller businesses and then adapting that works well as I think for enterprises too. But definitely Andrew Shotlin, the team at Local SEO Guide, they put out amazing blogs and also a lot of free tools for enterprises, which is really helpful.
Krystal, where can we read more about you or get in touch with you or follow you? Not in a weird way. Where should we go? What should we do?
I would say the best places are LinkedIn and Twitter. You can find me, first and last name, Krystal Taing. Connect with me, follow me, and I'm always happy to help and support if you have any questions whatsoever.
Brilliant, thank you. And can I just add one of my new favourite ways to get into the brain of clever people that are active in the GMB or GBP support communities to actually go and read their answers because you get wonderful insight. So we'll link to your profile there as well. So I need to say a super duper big thank you to you, Krystal.
Thank you.
Thank you for being our guest. Thank you.
Course.
Would you come back again another time?
Anytime you want.
Okay, because I'm sure that there'll be lots more questions for you. So thank you for giving up your time and for chatting with us today. And a big thank you, obviously, to all of our listeners. And if you haven't already subscribed to the podcast, then please do go ahead and do so, because then we can let you know and you will see when new episodes are live. So this is where we smile and wave and we say thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye.